Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this session. I'm very excited to have a conversation with our distinguished guests, and I do want it to be a conversation, not an interview of 20 questions. So we'll have a really great chat, and just to get us started, I'll have you introduce yourselves, just a quick intro, and then we'll get right into the discussion.
Sure, I guess I'll go first. I'm Grace Stanke. I am Miss America 2023, which is a bit unusual here at COP28. And the reason I'm here at this climate change conference is I'm a nuclear engineering student, soon to be graduate. I'm right on the tail end of my degree, and I am so honored to be here to help advocate for nuclear. I am a firm believer that nuclear energy is a part of the climate change solution. It provides clean, reliable, and small land usage requirements of energy, and that is awesome.
And I'm Guillem Sanchis from Barcelona, a nuclear engineer as of this year, so recent graduate. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all and appreciate the audience. It's long days for us all, so thank you.
I suppose I should introduce myself as well. My name is Gale Hauck. I'm currently on an assignment at the Department of Energy, but I'm based out of Oak Ridge National Lab, and I too was a nuclear engineering student, but it was a million years ago, so we won't get into that. Things have changed a lot since I was in undergrad, and I would love to hear more about that. So let's start off with why you decided to study nuclear engineering. Was there one major factor that really impacted and got you into that field?
Well, I have a really bad origin story. It's not good. So basically, I was a 16-year-old teenage girl that had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, as many 16-year-old teenage girls don't. That's a common reoccurring thing. I had a general direction. I knew I liked engineering. I enjoyed math. I enjoyed science. I liked that I was either right or wrong. There was no in between. I was identifying patterns. It was very just pleasing. So I knew I wanted to do engineering, but I had no idea what kind. I knew I wanted to do good and help the world and help people live their lives. And I was looking at a list of majors at a college that I was touring, and I remember going through the list and I was like, mechanical engineering, I'm like, that's too basic, like I can't do that, all right? And then I look at electrical and I'm like, my brother went into electrical, there's no way I'm doing electrical engineering because of that. And then I went through and I saw civil engineering, which was what my dad did, and I'm like, they just push dirt. They just push dirt. I don't want to do that either. And I see nuclear engineering on the list. And I look at it and I say, man, what a flex it would be to say I'm a nuclear engineer. Now, keep in mind, the only thing I knew about nuclear science at this point in time was that, bombs in World War II. And I was like, there's a maximum of 2 reactors in all of America. Like, there's no way there's more that's operating. This can't be a big thing. Oh, how wrong I was, right? So I go back home and I'm talking with my dad and I say, hey, Dad, I'm thinking about either nuclear or aerospace engineering simply because they both sounded really cool. The only reason, 16-year-old mind, remember this, okay? I'm not this way anymore. But I asked him his thoughts. And, he puts on his parent voice and he looks at me and he goes, Grace, don't go into nuclear. There's no future there. Now, 4 or 5 years ago, nuclear was in a very, very different environment. So maybe he was right at the time, but things have changed. However, when you tell a 16-year-old teenage girl not to do something, the first instinct for her is to go and do it. So that's exactly what happened. I selected nuclear engineering as my major at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and since I continued learning about nuclear science, and I learned that there's indeed more than 2 reactors operating in America, there is over 90 now. 93 we're at? 93.
Yes,
I was going to say soon to be 94 next spring.
Yep.
It kind of opened my eyes to where nuclear science exists all around us. In granite countertops, we've got bananas are radioactive, smoke detectors, all of this stuff that affected our daily lives. And most importantly, curing cancer. Radiological isotopes are a massive way that impacts people's lives that we don't know it. We don't realize the impact nuclear science has. My dad is one of those people. He survived cancer twice because of nuclear medicine, and that was the best I told you so moment of my entire life.
Yeah.
So, they say there's 2 backdoors into science for children, space and dinosaurs. I was on the space side. So I was, always into science and math and all of that. I've been thinking about it, today preparing for this, and I think I can point to at least one point, stereotypically the one teacher, a chemistry teacher, who told us a bit about how nuclear power works, and the exercise you make kids do if you had a gram of uranium, how much power, energy you could get out of it, and if it was oil, and you do the numbers yourself, right? So you do it with your own hands, and you realize, wow, we're talking orders of magnitude difference, right? It's not a slight improvement. So I like to think that kind of stayed in the back of my mind somehow. I went on to study physics. I worked as a teacher a couple of years after that. But I'd like to think, again, this kind of was in the back of my mind. At some point I said, okay, kind of doing teaching in between, deciding what I want to do. There was other, researching on YouTube, running into, Michael Schellenberg's TED Talk about nuclear power, or, learning about advanced reactors. That sounded cool enough. I also always had an interest in energy in general. I considered, for instance, renewable energy at some point as a career. Also did aerospace just because it just sounds cool, right? That's eventually studied nuclear engineering in Barcelona, which in Spain it's a master's degree only. I just finished last year, and that's the story.
So you went and taught first, and then you decided to go back and study nuclear engineering.
Yes, I taught as a substitute teacher a couple of years, a week here, a week there. It was fun.
Amazing.
Jumping in on the conversation part of this,
My
sister's an English teacher. Teachers deserve so much credit. Y'all have so much patience. Like, seriously, I give you so much credit.
Yeah.
It's tough. It was fun, and again, really admirable people who do that for a living on their careers. I enjoyed it. I did not see myself doing it for 40 years. I wanted to go back into either research or some kind of engineering, and so nuclear.
So another thing that you mentioned brings up another question I'd like to talk to you about. So you mentioned space and dinosaurs, right? What is the thing that most excites you now with what you've learned through your education? What are you most excited about in the nuclear engineering space?
I want to see a Mars base run on nuclear power. That'd be pretty cool. You do learn how with radically less material inputs and land use, you can basically, for the first time in human history, provide radical abundance for everyone on Earth, without at the same time, of course, while at the same time preserving our natural environment. So I think that would be it.
One of my favorite things to appeal to the space lovers out there in the world is Project Draco, which is thermal propulsion, like nuclear thermal propulsion rockets, which is like, if that's not straight out of Star Trek, I don't know what is. But there's so many awesome projects going on within nuclear, ranging from cancer research. Obviously, that's very close to my heart, so I'm incredibly excited to see where cancer research goes in terms of excitement. I had this opportunity to go to Japan this year as Miss America, and I was at Osaka University at the research center there, and I was sitting down with these folks, these researchers, and they're telling me about what they do. They're like, so we've got this project, so on and so forth, and we're in the clinical testing trial point, and we're working on curing cancer. And I instinctively I'm like, oh, what kind of cancer? And they look at me and they go, all cancer. And I'm like, okay, you just had to flex on me like that. But it's so incredible to know that that's a possibility. Yeah. It's something that affects 1 out of 3 people. It's something that it's something that's in people they love, people they know. Maybe they don't make it through, and if we can help fight that, that's going to be incredible. Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, there's some real science fiction stuff out there with cancer treatment. I think it's a lutetium isotope or something. It deletes it. It's crazy.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about successes and challenges that you've had through your nuclear engineering schooling. So first, let's talk about challenges. If there's a big challenge that you've had that sticks out that you'd like to share a story about.
Can I say specifically complex imaginary and vector calculus? Ugh. Like, that was awful. That was the worst class in the world. But on a more serious note,
don't disagree with you.
Yeah, that was awful. But on a more serious note, I think that one of the things that does jump to my mind is being a woman in nuclear engineering. It's growing up, I never thought that would be a problem. I never felt like I've been blocked from the opportunity of becoming a woman in nuclear. I've never felt held back in that way, but I never expected the social differences in terms of, just being a high schooler to going into a program and I look around the room and I feel alone. right? I didn't come from that setting, and that was something that shocked me, and it really opened my eyes to the importance of role models. It's just been so incredible this year to meet other incredible women in nuclear, just like yourself, Gale, and it's also been incredible to see the hard work of knowing that we're supporting each other and lifting each other up through sort of these rough times. I'll never forget, I had this not so great experience with one of my peers, and there was a grad student at the university. I had never really talked to her before. I had never really interacted with her before, and I see her walking on the sidewalk, and I stop and I just start sobbing. Like I am full on sobbing in the streets of Madison, like to this girl that is like, oh my God, you're the one weird undergraduate, right? Like you're the one that talks a lot. And I was like, yeah, and we had this conversation, and you know, it's such a valuable thing to lift each other up and to make sure that it's something that is going beyond just women too, you know, making sure that it's a welcoming environment for everybody, and we're promoting and rewarding those who deserve it, not based off of appearance, not based off of attaining a percentage, but making sure that people are working hard to do that.
Yeah. Guillem?
Yeah, I don't know how much of interest, curiosity to the conversation it is. Not to flex, I was fine with the calculus. I came from physics, right? So it was fine. Honestly, the problem. I do mean it. I did struggle with the amount of documentation one deals with in this field. It's crazy. I'm not used to that. I don't like it. I'm happy now. I'm doing simulations on a computer. That's cool. That's fine. But the amount of reports and the amount of documentation, regulations one deals with it's quite something. I'm told anything like, for instance, the chemical industry is not within an order of magnitude of that. So that was a challenge, I guess. Different personalities.
Yeah.
As a person coming into the industry, can we talk about acronyms? The nuclear industry is like obsessed with acronyms, and like it's really fun. Well, it's fun, but it's also confusing, because I joined when I first started working in the industry, the group I was with was obsessed with Star Wars, so they would name their programs like Holocron and Lightsaber and Darksaber, and like it was like I sat there and I'm like, what does this actually do? And they're like, I don't know, it's just a cool Star Wars acronym, and I'm like, but what does it stand for? And nobody actually knew. It was one person that made it.
Yeah, we do like those a bit too much.
Yes, and the best part is when you combine both of those with all of the documents that have all of the acronyms in them. It's a flex if you can give an entire sentence in just acronyms, and somebody can understand you when you say it. That's the important part.
That's when you know you're like in. When you can understand it, that's like got to be a moment where it's like, oh boy, there's no turning back.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure I've read sentences where other than prepositions, the rest are
entirely
acronyms.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so let's pivot to successes. Going through your programs in nuclear engineering, what were some of the biggest successes that you had?
I think one of the biggest things is really the people I met. And like this even carries into my year as Miss America. And I talk about this a lot, that I've had this opportunity to see the good in people. And I think nuclear really represents hope. You know, we're here at COP28, and there's this kind of unanimous feeling, I feel like, especially amongst young people, that a lot of environmentalists and a lot of climate activists are like, the world is ending, it's burning, and like we all grew up with it, so we're like, yeah, we know. I just want to make it to 40, like that's the hope. But the thing about nuclear is it's hope, and the reason that it's hope is because of the people that operate it. We work together as a team. We work together to cooperate. We highlight differences. We make sure that we're pointing out flaws. We make sure we reach a unanimous decision to create the best product possible. We promote a questioning attitude. And I just, like, that is something that is so awesome about the nuclear industry, that I never thought I would find a place to work that was like that, where they truly prioritized getting the job done and creating the best product possible over politics and over everything else that there is, because we have to hold ourselves to a standard of perfection and a standard of excellence.
Yeah, if I can build onto that, because as someone in the industry, you do see that the second you start, and it is quite impactful. The level of standards, how much I'm sure there's no industry close to that. The amount of holding each other accountable in anything. You write a document, you run a program. The amount of steps it goes through for every minor thing, it gets annoying. we have a thing called the safety moment, which I'm pretty sure is exclusive of this industry. Which anytime you start a meeting, you do a safety moment.
Yep.
Is that an international thing?
Pre-job briefs. I
Sure.
love them. They're
Right,
amazing.
right. So you start a meeting and you share some, experience that has to do with nuclear safety, even if it's completely unrelated to the meeting. So it's this culture of constantly thinking about that, which is it's quite shocking. It's quite impressive, and in a way, it's quite reassuring the day you start seeing how this is the standard that's applied to all the power plants and the rest.
So we're talking a lot about this documentation. Do you see any of that as being a problem or a challenge, or is there advice that you would give to younger folks that are coming in to how to deal with that, or is it something they should try to change?
I'd say learn Excel spreadsheets. It was one of my main jobs when I was working as a co-op. Was basically going through a ton of documentation because that's a co-op job. Listen, I get it. And it was really interesting though, because I really learned how to organize that and how to make sure I was understanding what I was looking at. And I had a lot of help from mentors too. That's one thing that's awesome about nuclear is we have a lot of intergenerational assistance where we need to pass on the knowledge, because at a power plant, when you're working on site, sometimes, the documentation is like this, but that valve, you've just got to jiggle it a little bit just to make it right, or whatever it is. It's something that you have those little quirks and little pieces of knowledge that is passed on from each generation.
Yeah, I am still learning Excel spreadsheets as well. Yeah, it will take, I'm sure, years to know all the shortcuts there are in that thing. Yes, there is a lot of depth of knowledge for sure, and for a reason. Obviously, we're just talking about the safety culture. If anything, I would like to point out that because often that's portrayed as it's a slow industry. It's really hard for it to evolve. Every tiny change takes 10 years. A lot of the time that is for a good reason, and we do want the industry to, of course, evolve and progress. We do not want to obviously rush things in the nuclear sector. It's critical infrastructure. And sometimes, I guess it's the Silicon Valley culture: break fast, move fast, break things.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't want that approach to a nuclear power plant. So I would like to, in that kind of application, defend the approach of methodical progress, which at the end of the day, in many more things that people realize is what moves the world forward.
And I think that there's some smaller companies that are finding ways now to move fast and break things within the safety boundaries that we have, and I think that's very exciting. So with that, I will turn over to Shirly.
Thank you. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. So why don't we just start out with just a quick introduction, and then tell us why you decided to study nuclear engineering.
Well, I'm originally from Peru, and when I was 13 years old, my teacher was talking about how powerful the nucleus of the atom was, and how we can take a lot of energy from it. So in Peru, when I was a little girl, there were a lot of terrorism, and I used to do homework with candles. So in my little mind, on my 13-year-old mind, I said, well, if we use nuclear power, I won't use candles anymore. And then I said, yeah, that's it. I want to be a nuclear engineer. And Peru didn't have a nuclear engineering program. So I waited until I was 29 to start studying nuclear engineering. So, yeah, my passion started early.
It started early, but it took you a little bit to be able to get to where you wanted to go.
Yes, a lot of people don't know that I never went to school to learn English, for example. So when I got to the U.S., it took me some time to earn enough English, to learn enough English, and also to earn enough money to be able to go to school. And, I have a lot of sleepless nights, and I had to read multiple times to even understand a problem to be able to solve it, because English is not my first language. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people who are not English natives or U.S. or, relate with me. And, or anybody who goes to a different country who's now their own and have a different language and have to learn and study and go through school to two different degrees. Yes, it can get tough, but it's very rewarding when you find your passion and you love what you do at work, for example.
Yeah, what a wonderful determination that you had too to have that success. That's very impressive.
Thank you.
So let's continue on, Shirly, with you. If you could talk a little bit, we've been talking about some of the successes and challenges of our time through nuclear engineering school. If you could talk a little bit about what your biggest challenge, I mean, I think you talked a little bit about what your biggest challenge, but what was your biggest success?
Well, I am a first generation student, college student. Mm-hmm. So, and once you start discovering people and open your networking, you are a victim, or you start experiencing upward mobility. And that upward mobility, when you are the first one in your generation to do something to achieve a degree, you don't have nobody to relate, nobody to talk about economics, investments, how to take steps on your personal and professional career.
Mentors,
so that's so that's one of the challenges that I still go through. Gladly and grateful enough, I have a little bit more income that I can get advice and seek advice, and also my network. I have an amazing support from all the people. Some of them are present here, and I try to learn from them as well.
Amazing. So at this point, I want to see if we have any questions in the audience, if anybody has anything that they would really love to hear about from the panelists. Yeah, go ahead.
We're at a very exciting time for nuclear energy, and as has been covered, there's possibly some new innovations coming up. I'd like to ask the panelists, especially those in the beginning of the careers, like, what is it that you most hope you'll be working on or see, like in 10 years, 20 years in the future?
That's an excellent question.
I was going to say, so I can hand this one. So it's something that is really exciting because I want to see fusion commercialized by the end of my career, for sure. So careers, I guess, are 20 to 30 years. So 20 years from now, I would really love to see a commercial fusion plant come online. I think that would be incredible. I started my first job in nuclear, was working at a fusion research lab. So I think I'll always kind of have a special place in my heart for it, even though I'm going to be doing core design engineering in my early career at fission plants. But it's something that I really hope to see that.
Yeah, I think we've heard from some people who graduated just when Fukushima happened, and they really felt like timing was terrible. They had to start all over. I think for us, graduating at least now, our timing couldn't be better, right? I think the industry hasn't looked so much poised for growth for decades, basically since the first.
Since I graduated, basically,
there you go.
Yes.
There you go. So yeah, I'm really optimistic. I mean, for my country, Spain, we have a nuclear phase-out plant. I'm sure we will get to revert that. I want more reactors in Spain, and I just want more. I want nuclear power, in every continent. We in the developed world, industrialized world, need it for obviously decarbonize our grids and other carbon-intensive sectors. Steel, we're learning AI will dramatically increase the demand for electricity, etc. But honestly, probably the people who need it the most are the people not in the industrialized countries, who can use it to bypass probably the dirty phase of development, but not with. So yeah, the bypass the dirty phase of development to go straight to a reliable, clean source of power.
Excellent. Shirley, what are you most excited about to work on?
While I was studying and throughout my entire career, one of my missions was to get into global acceptance of nuclear and also information about their benefits, not just in electricity. So from here to 10 years, I hope that we have a global public acceptance, because as I heard it multiple times here, it's not a technology problem, it's a deployment problem.
Sure.
So I'm hoping that we will advance, more countries will get into alliance, harmonization. I'm looking for harmonization.
Yep.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Excellent.
And to be clear, I do want that nuclear reactor on Mars by the end of my career. I think we can get there.
We cannot forget about that. Are there other questions on that? Yeah, please.
Thank you, Charlene Smith, nuclear engineer. My question is, I guess, for all of you, but I'll start with you, Grace, since you brought it up. I also had the experience where I entered my graduate program, my nuclear engineering program at the University of Florida, and looked around, and there was there was no one else that looked like me there, and so you got that feeling of being alone and isolated. And even Shirly was really the only other face, because we were in the same degree program at the University of Florida, and that's why we are kind of thick as thieves today. But what do you think, or what are you guys individually doing to try to accelerate young people getting into nuclear engineering programs, whether it's in the US, whether it's elsewhere? What are you doing in your advocacy work to be able to promote that, so we have an accelerated drive to build human capital in the nuclear industry?
Thanks, Charlene.
For me personally, with the advocacy work I do, I bring nuclear to schools, essentially, and I try to make this technology seem as awesome as I can, right? I want it to be exciting. I want kids to dream about it. Now, specifically addressing percentages in terms of increasing the amount of women, increasing the amount of minorities overall, I had an experience this year, and I've had similar experiences before, but I was at a facility, and I had an individual come up to me, and he said, "Hey, Grace, I want to hire you. One, because you're a woman." And I was like, dude, are you serious right now? Of all of the things you could have chosen, you started with my biological makeup. And that is, to me, that's even more frustrating than being promoted or being hired, just be like saying it to my face. Like, seriously? So when I go into schools, I'm really particularly passionate about genuinely, I work with anybody and everybody. And what I focus on is helping people find their passions and helping find them a place within nuclear. I firmly believe nuclear is all hands on deck. I talked about how it's teams. Well, it's more than just engineers. It's more than just technicians. It's more than just operators. We need communicators. We need doctors on site. We need legal teams. We need literally everybody. So it's about helping them find their passion, and then what I try to convince them of is to serve the mission of nuclear. So that's my main strategy in terms of it, because I hated when people treated me differently because of my biology and because of the way I look. So honestly, with young kids and on the recruitment side of things, I just help them find their passion, and then I give them a mission to serve.
I'll be fully honest, it's been a long day. I'll need to hear the question again.
What are you doing in your own advocacy work to help to drive human capital in nuclear?
Right, I appreciate it, sorry. In my advocacy work in Spain at the moment, so obviously our focus is very time constrained and very focused on the phase out. We are talking to children in schools, high school level, and so I'm sure the answer is pretty similar, right? We want to create that spark of curiosity for science and technology. But I think more than anything, we also brought up before the sense of doom, the world is ending, that probably this generation is dealing with the most, the generation growing up now in school now. So I think most of all we do want to create on them a sense of, optimism and wonder, and how can I contribute to a brighter future for me and the people around me. So I think that would be my answer.
So what we need to do, Guillem, is to add to your list of the things that gets little kids really interested in science is space, dinosaurs, and nuclear energy.
That'd be lovely.
Okay. Shirley?
What I do, I try to create awareness, first off. Awareness of diversity, awareness of inclusion, sense of belonging. And I'm not just talking about race, sex, gender. I'm also talking about those disabilities that we cannot see. A lot of us don't even think about it, And they are so important because that says a lot about how they're going to feel and if they're going to be interested in what you have to say and what you have to offer. So in every country that I go, I try to first start with interpersonal and then try to get them interested in what I do, and also tell them about the benefits of nuclear. Again, energy might not be for them, but maybe in agriculture, medicine, space, anything, any benefit that nuclear has, I'm trying to get them excited. And I'm grateful enough that every country that I go, people it's gracious enough to message me, and I'm mentoring for them, and I have multiple mentees, and this is my third COP, and I have multiple mentees, thanks to COP actually. So
Amazing.
yeah, thanks.
Any other audience questions? Yeah, please.
First of all, thank you guys so much for speaking today. I'm Andrew from Emory University, so close to Florida and based in Georgia. My question is, given that all of you have vast experience in nuclear, I was curious about your interaction or collaboration with other renewable energy sources and what that looks like and what you envision.
I'll jump into it. So it's really interesting because I spend a lot of time talking about nuclear. And I do that because I think nuclear has the biggest hurdles to overcome, and it is the most essential. A lot of people on social media content that I post, you know, I feel like they get the vibe that I think we should have a 100% nuclear grid. That's not true. That's not true. We need a diverse energy portfolio in order to be able to have reliable energy in the end. Nuclear should be a part of the baseload source of energy that we need. That's the biggest thing. So when it comes to working with renewables, a lot of the times when I'm talking with kids, we're talking about every different type of energy. You know, we're talking about solar, we're talking about wind, we're talking about nuclear, and we're talking about geothermal and biomass and all of these different things that are so cool. But it's important to address, you know, what are the flaws in all of these? What are the benefits in all of these? In my home state of Wisconsin, we don't really have geothermal as an option. You know, it's very cold there. We're pretty much in Canada. It's probably snowing there right now. So it's important to address those things and understand that energy depends on the geography you have in your area, the type of climate that you have, because some of those forms of energy production rely on the world around us, but nuclear doesn't. It doesn't depend on that outside environment. And that's why it's so important for it to be a part of the baseload source of energy.
Yeah, I think I would basically just redo the same point, so I won't. We just know, you know, as with everything, nuclear energy generation, there's no perfect answer, right? There's, as Kiefer says, right? Oh, no, I'll butcher it. So there's advantages and there's compromises, right? And
Yeah.
of course, we're here because we believe in nuclear as a key part of it. The other technologies, of course, have advantages that we are aware of, but also, of course, limitations. I will not rehash the same things. I would only say keep an eye on advanced geothermal. It might have more applications than we think, if I'm seeing it correctly. So, yeah.
You know, in a perfect world, I will say, yes, everything will be nuclear. But I know this is called an energy transition. So we need to achieve climate prosperity. And I also know that nuclear doesn't get built in a year. So that energy transition to reach net zero, we need anything and everything. But we need to make it clean. We also need to think about some countries do not have energy transition. Cities, I will say. They have no energy, so what transition are they going to have? That's one of the things that I like to bring it up. So whatever, like Grace said, whatever fits to the city, the country, of course, I would love to be nuclear. I would love to be advanced nuclear because I love sort of cool, fast reactors. But, you know, whatever fits us and whatever get us through net zero by 2050, we are open. I'm open to it.
Excellent. I want to ask the panelists if they have any questions for each other.
Can I hear like more? I love that you brought up sodium cooled fast reactors. Can I hear about like your niche? Because I know every nuclear engineer has that one thing that they will talk about for hours. Now I don't want to hear hours, but like a couple of 2 minutes of what you love, what makes you so passionate about this industry that like you can do every day, morning to night.
For me, it's design systems. When I started, I knew I always wanted to design reactors, but it was so impregnated by my teachers. You need to learn about the maintenance. You need to learn about the maintenance. So what was the first thing that I did? I was a field engineer to understand all the systems. So I used to manage outages, to learn the systems, how they work, how they interface. Once I got that done, I was like, okay, let's move to engineer. Where of course my boss was like, you're better in engineering than here. So I transitioned to energy and to reactors, to designing, and I started with VTR. That was the first reactor that I started designing. But yes, systems. I love systems, how they interface. It's not just one thing at a time. Because I will admit that I get bored if I just do one thing every day. But when it's systems, you have to interact and interface with multiple things. So I love that.
You want a niche, really? So it's the lead fast reactor. It's like the sodium cooled reactor, but instead of liquid, instead of molten sodium, you have molten lead. Unlike sodium, it does not explode in contact with water or air. It has some disadvantages, mostly corrosion, which are getting fixed. There's very promising material science out of Stockholm. I'm biased. I did my master's thesis there, so I seeped in that for a few months. There's a couple interesting startups, Nucleo in Italy, and of course Lead Cold. Now I think they're called Blykalla because they translate to Swedish. Sounds cooler.
It does sound cool.
It has some really interesting properties. It also it's lead, right? So it shields itself, so you can put it much closer to people. It has quite a few cool advantages. That being said, if I would have to stick to one reactor for everything, it'd probably be the CANDU. I think it's the most flexible. You can make medical isotopes. You maybe can even do thermal breeding with thorium. They're looking at that, and proven and all of that. So that's my 2 cents. What about you?
What about you? I just like talking about it. That's such a weird thing to say. I love learning about advanced reactors, and honestly, we kind of talked about it earlier, where the innovation is just so cool. It feels like we are living out our best sci-fi movie dreams, and that's something that's literally every day when we go to work. And I think that is so incredible, and we should be telling that to the entire world. So I'm very loud, and I wear a sparkly hat when I'm Miss America, so that helps. So that's really something that I'm super passionate about in terms of strategy of communicating it from a technical perspective, talking about a lead-cooled reactor, to the general public. It's something that doesn't necessarily click. So it's awesome to be able to understand how to bridge that into the general public.
Yeah, so it's basically alchemy. You take an element and you make other elements out of it.
You did a great job. I'm just magic though.
If I had to do one word, they say if it was discovered today, everyone would be super for it, right? Of course, it has the history that it has, but yeah, it's alchemy. You are transmuting one element into others. So.
Okay,
I love that.
Do we have another minute? Because I have a super deep question. Okay, so we have 1 minute. Okay,
Yeah,
so
you're good.
what do we think nuclear would look like if it was created today in the form of the first impression was atoms for peace, right? Nuclear energy. Would we get overwhelming support? Do we think it would be the same thing?
Yeah, probably. We may have the base on Mars by now. Who knows?
Mars base already. Elon Musk would say, all right.
I think it's about what we didn't do when we had accidents. We have to let people know that nothing is 0% and nothing is 100%. We get accidents everywhere. Even if we're drinking water, we can get an accident. And I think the technical people in the past were not great speakers with this technology. So to me, it's all about communications. I would love that to happen, but people need to understand why we're doing this, the benefits of it, not just in electricity. And I like to emphasize not just electricity, because a lot of people doesn't know about the other benefits. Like here, when I talk about the applications in agriculture, they were like, oh my God, I didn't know that. Is that true? They don't believe me at all. And I was like, yes, it is true. You use it for pests. You use it to take the pesticide residues. But yes, it's just, I love when I see their faces and like, oh my God, I love that.
It's awesome. It really is. It really is. But I completely agree in a sense of, I think today if nuclear energy was released, we had a very dramatic reveal of the next or the first ever reactor design. I think people would really see that this technology is an incredible option moving forward. You know, it is clean, it is reliable, it's small amount of land usage, and in terms of just the various applications, I completely agree. I talk about agriculture a lot in my home state of Wisconsin.
Right.
We have a lot of cows and a lot of corn.
I mean,
so, yeah.
Gabon. We can talk about Gabon, right? It was
Exactly.
natural.
Uh-huh.
It is there. It happened, and a lot of people don't know about it. So
That's awesome. There's a
can you
question over here.
Can you
too.
give a little background on what that is for the people that don't know about it?
Sorry. Yeah, I was getting my water. It's fine. Yeah, so there was this one place in Gabon millions of years ago where uranium was like a uranium mine, right? So it was uranium in the soil, and it was just in the concentration exactly. The water filtered in the right way, so we had like a natural reactor. Like fission happened at, of course, a very low power for millions of years. So we didn't even invent fission more than we discovered it, right? And it's actually a really good way to explain that nuclear waste is fine, because we know exactly how much fission happened because we measure what's called the fission products, right? The waste was and it was contained by mistake. It was contained. It moved like a millimeter over millions of years. So the way we bury it with several layers, and on top of that, it's a great example.
It's very cool. So I know there's still questions in the audience, but we only have like 2 minutes left. So hopefully the panelists can hang out for a few minutes afterwards and answer any other questions you had. I want to leave us with your best piece of advice. So if somebody is interested in going into nuclear engineering, or maybe they're just starting as a student, what is the number one piece of advice that you would have given to your younger self, maybe?
Stay curious. There is so much to learn. I think we've only unlocked like 2 to 3% of the science that exists within the nuclear world. Like, we have so much left to figure out, and it is so important to stay curious and keep learning.
Yeah, go for. It's just too much of a stereotype, right? But go with your passion. It's hard at first. It's really fun. And it's going to get much more fun the coming years.
I define myself as a professional challenger. So the first thing, whether it is nuclear, which I would love for everybody to do nuclear, challenge ideas, challenge people, of course, in a good way, but that's how we progress. That's how we improve. So I will say challenge everything.
I love that. Thank you so much to all of our panelists.
Thank you, Gale.
And thank you all for coming.